Good evening, everybody.
Kavod Haraf, how are you?
Okay. It's like we're going to Lamed Het. So it says here, Shikor lo yisad kapav. But if you're drunk, you're not allowed to do the blessing. Resh Lakish, so it says with Yosef, Resh Perek Batra de Taniot. This is the beginning of the last perek of Tanit. Katav Rabbeinu Rucham, says this rabbi, Nireli davka keshegia leshichuto shel Lot. That's only if he got to the drunkenness of Lot. Kidaminan be'alma, like we say in the Gemara, Eruvin, Samech Yamud Aleph, עד כאן השעון נראה מדבריו שטעם איסור נשיאות כפיים לשיכור, הווה משום דנשיאות כפיים דומה לתפילה. So he says you learn from there that the prohibition of doing the blessing while drunk is similar to doing it when you're praying, being drunk when you're praying. אבל לא משמע לי אלא משום דאיתקש ברכת כהנים לעבודה. But he says, to me, it seems like there's a different source, which is that the blessing is likened to the priestly service. As it says in Devarim, Yud Yachet, the Sharto Barech, it says that they should serve him and bless. וכן כתב הרמב"ם, it says in Rambam, ולפי זה אפילו בשתה רביעית יין. So according to that, even if he drank one רביעית, which is like 3 ounces, לא יישא, he shouldn't do the blessing. כדי בסמוך, like we said, close by, ואחי נקטין, and I said, that's הלכה. Interesting, okay. But then he goes on, כתב הרמב"ם. The Rambam writes, Shata Revi'it Yain. He drank a Revi'it of wine, which is 3 ounces, as we said, in one shot, Lo Yisad Kapav. He shouldn't do the blessing. Perek Tetvav Minchot Tfilah, that's where the source is. And he says, we already said the reason why. But that which he wrote, that if he drank it in 2 shots, or he put in there a little water, mutar, then it's allowed if he diluted it. That's what we concluded in this Kretot, Yud Gimel Amud Bet. The halacha Rabbi Eliezer, halacha is like Rabbi Eliezer. The Amar and im hifsik bo, he says that if he made some kind of interruption there, some kind of pause, or shenatan letochom mayim koshu, or he put in there a little water, patur, he's absolved. Im nichnas the mikdash, he goes into the mikdash. וכיוון בביאת המקדש פטור בנשיאת כפיים, mutar, and since he's when it comes to going into the temple, he's absolved. When it comes to doing the blessing, it's allowed. To have the itkash bracha la'avodah, because that which you have the blessing and the service juxtaposed. Asmachta be'almahi. This is only rabbinical. The dayenu shenasor said kapav. So therefore, we're not going to be so stringent. We'll only forbid to do the priestly blessing. Only if he would go into the temple, he would be liable. Mash katav, and that which he wrote, the im shata, the Torah we're talking about. If he drank yoter melevit, more than a bit, more than 3 ounces, even though it was diluted, even though he drank it several times, meaning what, that he made, pauses. Lo yisad kapav, he shouldn't bless people. That's what we conclude over there in the Gemara. But if he put a little bit water in there, he's absolved. That's only with Revit. But if he drank more than Revit, even though he put in there water, he's going to be liable. And the Rambam understands it that the same also applies to that which we say, the imif sik bo patu. And if he did pauses, he's absolved. Dafka berevi'it, that's only when you drink a revi'it, 3 ounces. About the alternative, but if it's more than a revi'it, even though he did pauses, chayav, he's still liable. The chevan shechem, and since it's so, asur yisad kapab, so therefore he cannot bless. Okay, there you go. Let's come at chet. Let's see Shulchan Aruch. So Okay, sorry for the wait. So it says, "Shatar revi'it yain bebat echad." It says in the Shulchan Aruch, if he drank one revi'it, which we said 3 ounces. There's also another opinion, by the way, which is like 5 ounces, but it's a more like a stringency. The proper opinion, the more accurate one is 3 ounces. So if he drank it in one shot, lo yisad kapav, he shouldn't do the priestly blessing. Shatan b'shnei pamim, if he did it in 2 shots, or shenatan letocho miat mayim, or he put in there a little water, diluted it, ve'im shata yoter merevit, mutar, I'm sorry. So then it's mutar, then it's allowed in cases like that. So that would so when would it be forbidden according to this? If he drank undiluted wine only. But if it was diluted or he drank it right with pauses, so then it will be allowed. So then he goes on, but if he drank more than 3 ounces, let's say he drank 5 ounces, even though it's diluted, even though he drank it in several shots, then he should not bless until right he becomes sober from the wine. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know about that. Otherwise, we'll go on.
So Kavod Harav, one, if he did half of that portion, so that would be, what is it, 1.5 and 1.5?
Yeah, 1.5, right.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let's go on to Lamed. So it says in Lamed, let's see the tour with this one. Yeah, so it says the tour like this. You know how you bought midbarim hamoniim nesiat kapayim? Let's say he doesn't have anything which prevents him from doing the blessing. Even though, he's not so religious, this guy, he's not Mr. Perfect, right? And people, because of that, people are talking about him, that he's not so religious and, he's not so exacting with the mitzvot. You can still do the blessing, he says. So he says, you know why? Because it's a positive commandment for every Kohen to do this. So therefore, right, if we tell him not to do it, like we're making him even more of a sinner, so it's not good to do that. What's the point, making him even worse by not doing the priestly blessing. So therefore, if he's like, kind of like, he's not exactly so religious, but he's pretty much you can tell that he's a Jew, he lives like a Jew. So we allow him.
Kabbalah Taraf, what would be someone who's not so religious in this case? Do you need witnesses to?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, it's not only in this case, it's like in many cases, but the point is, that we don't see him breaking Shabbat in public, driving a car or something, We don't see something like that, right?
Okay.
We don't see him, in public that he goes to eat in, McDonald's, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So he's not that bad, but there are rumors going around about him, Yeah, I saw him, in this non-kosher restaurant, things like this, right? Yeah, some people are saying, yeah, I saw him one time, he took the elevator on Shabbat, I don't know, what's going on with this guy.
Okay.
So there's rumors going around about him, whatever, things like this, right? So, the elevator, I guess, is not such a good example, but let's say, for instance, some people claim, yeah, I saw him shaving, with a razor, something like that, right?
Okay.
That would be like a disqualification, if it was really true. But there's really no clear testimony, just some rumors going around, yeah, I heard he does this, so nobody's really testifying. But there's rumors, I heard, yeah, he does this, and I heard he does that. So a person like this, he's not so religious, he's not exactly Mr. Perfect, this guy. On the other hand, he's not a proven sinner.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Thank you.
So a guy like this, we don't tell him to not to do the blessing, because that makes him even worse. What's the point of that? Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. So let's see the Shulchan Aruch. So says Shulchan Aruch, לא היו בו מהדברים המונעים נשיאת כפיים. He doesn't have things that prevent him from doing the priestly blessing, אף על פי שאינו מדקדק במצוות, even though he's really not so religious, this guy. וכל העם מרעננים אחריו, and people are, there's rumors going around, yeah, he does this and he does that. נושאת כפיו, but nevertheless they should let him do the blessing. So, right, the way that the Shulchan Aruch describes it, you can see we're talking about two different things, right? One is that he's not so religious. You know what I mean? And the other is there's also rumors about him, that he's a sinner. So nevertheless, right, we allow him to do it. So the Ramah here brings the reason for this right from a different perspective a little bit. So he says the reason is because the rest of the sins that people do don't really prevent him from doing the priestly blessing. So then what does prevent him? As we said, right, like the big sins, murder, idolatry, breaking Shabbat, things like this, right? Which are the big sins, That's what we talked about yesterday in the Mishnah Berurah, if you remember. Okay, so that's the story. But more of the minor sins, what I'm saying? It seems like they don't prevent him. That's what he's saying. I mean, it's all relative, right? Major, minor, this, that, whatever. But Because there are sins where a person does them, he's considered to be like a goy, like breaking Shabbat, doing idolatry. It's like he's a goy. Okay, let's go to the next one. So going to Mem. So it says over here in the Bet Yosef, Tanan v'pek shvi bechorot. Right over here, we learn in the second pek of bechorot. Mem he amudef. הנושא נשים בעבירה פסול עד שידיר הניה ונטמע למתים פסול. Right, so first he talks about the issue of, that a Kohen takes a woman that's forbidden to him, like a divorced woman or whatever, or a convert, right? They're not allowed to make converts, Kohanim. So all these things, if he does them, if he marries one of these women, he's going to be pasul. Until he does teshuvah, So here he can do teshuvah. So what's the teshuvah? He's got to divorce his wife, right? To get rid of her. He's not allowed to be with her, That's one thing. So then he goes on, what about a Kohen who touches dead bodies, right, or goes to the cemetery? So they're not allowed to do that, right? So he's going to be pasul until he does teshuvah. Until he accepts not to do that. So he says the truth is that the poskim did not mention these things. So the question is why, right? If it's mentioned in the Talmud, why didn't the poskim mention these things? אפשר שהטעם דכיוון שאם עבר קודם שידיר, או שיקבל עליו לא חילל, וכמו שכתב הרמב"ם. So he says it's possible, the reason is that even if he, I'm sorry, not even, but since if he did the service right before he, accepted upon himself to repent, or shekabel alav, or he accepted it before he accepted it. Lo chilel, he didn't. It could be that the reason is that he doesn't. His service is not disqualified here. וכמו שכתב רמב"ם, the Rambam says פרק ו' מלכות ביאת המקדש over there, אם כן נושא הוא כפיו לכתחילה. So it says if so, he can do the priestly blessing even לכתחילה, וכאין מה שכתבתי גבי שיכור, like similar to what we wrote about somebody who's drunk. לכל אחד שאם נכנס למקדש פטור, that the rule is like this, right? That if he would go into the temple, he would be absolved. Beside kapav, so then he can even lechatchila even do the blessing. That's what it seems what the Rambam says. Regarding the Kohen who killed somebody or did idolatry, the shar averot and also other sins, they don't prevent him. It seems like he's saying that even if he didn't do teshuvah, they don't prevent him. Right, so the point is like this, right? The Rambam says the other sins don't prevent him, as we already mentioned. אבל רבנו הגדול מרי אבוהה, but this rabbi כתב שנראה לו לדעת הכל כהן. He says that it seems to him that everybody agrees כהן שהוא נשוי עם גרושה, the Kohen who's married to a divorced woman, אין לו לישאת כפיו, he shouldn't do the priestly blessing, ואין לו לעלות בתורה, and he shouldn't go up to the Torah, שהרי בכל שעה עומד במרדו. Why? Because he's every moment that he doesn't divorce this woman, he's still living in sin. ובסימן קל"ה, in this סימן, כתב וזה לשונו, this is what he says there, ועוד כתוב משמד מור שמואל כהן ונטמע למתים שאינם משבעה מתי מצוות ונזיד ייפסל מן הדוכן. So it says in the Talmud that Shmuel, right, he was a Kohen, and he defiles himself from the dead for the 7, Mete Mitzvot, which are the obligation to bury them, even for someone who's forbidden. The Nazid, if Hasim in Adukhan, what is going to be disqualified from from blessing? And Kol Ma'alot HaKohen, also all the types of Kohanic rites, whatever. Until he returns to Tanan, because we learned the Mishnah, that a person who marries women sinfully, right? That means that he marries, somebody who's forbidden to a Kohen. Pasul ad sheidor hana, he's going to be pasul until he, he vows not to get benefit. V'am tamid metim, and a person who touches the dead bodies or things like this, cemeteries, until he accepts not to do that. The Gama Rashba Katav B'Tshuva. Also, the Rashba says in the Tshuva, the Kohen Shenasa Grusha, Kohen who married a divorced woman, En Nohagim Bo Kedusha. We don't give him any, right? We don't treat him like a Kohen. We treat him like a regular guy. Afilu Likrot B'Torah Rishon, even to go up to the Torah first. Afilu Girsha, and even if he divorced her or meta or she died, pasul, he's going to be pasul ad sheidor hana'ah, until he makes a vow not to get benefit from this kind of thing. Al dat rabim, right, in the public, me'anashim shehu asu behen, from the women that he is forbidden to them, kedita bechorot, like it says in bechorot. Ad kan. Ulinyan halacha. So he says, what's the halacha? Bottom line, kivan de aposkim lo itiru beperush. Since the poskim did not allow explicitly these things, naktinan kidibre mor Shmuel ve'Rashba, so therefore we pass like these rabbis, asru beferush, that they said it's forbidden these things. Okay, very interesting. Let's see the Shulchan Aruch. So, says Shulchan Aruch, Kohen shenasa grusha, Kohen that married a divorced woman. Lo isa kapav, you shouldn't do the priestly blessing. We don't treat him with any sanctity. Even to go up to the Torah first. Even if he divorced her or she died, he's going to be disqualified until he makes a vow, the volition of the public, from the women, not to get benefit from the women that he's forbidden to them. Okay, any questions about that? We have another one here.
Kalatov, you said that until he doesn't derive benefit from it. What about if he has offspring with this?
He has to vow, right, not to get benefit. Make a vow.
Okay, and if he has any children, he will still get benefits, no?
What's done is done, you know what I mean? I don't know what benefit you're talking about, really, but we're not talking about the past, right?
Right. Okay, I understood now what you meant. Okay, thank you.
So we got Shulchan Aruch here, another one, 41. Let's say he defiled himself for the dead, right? Which is not a mitzvah for him to defile. Pasul min ad-dukhan. He's going to be also disqualified from the blessing. The chol ma'alot ha-kehuna, and also all the the benefits of the kehuna. Ad she'ashuv yikabel shelo yitameh od l'metim. Until he also here he accepts that not to get defiled from the dead. It says in parentheses, "V'yesh omim demi sheyesh lo bat." Oh, so here brings the Ramah a different case. That what about a person who has a daughter, shemira la'avodat kochavim, and she became idolater, right? God forbid. Or shazinta, or she became a prostitute. Whatever, she prostituted herself. So en mechayvin od lekadesho ki avia hi mechalelet. So he says, right, in a case like this, where the daughter became idolatrous or, prostitution, so she is defiling her father, right? This is something from the verse in Vaikra. So he says, we don't obligate her lekadesho, to sanctify him. Wow, that's very interesting. Let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says about this. Right, so what he's saying over here, the Ramah, is something interesting. That once the daughter has done this and defiled her father in this way, we're not obligated to treat him anymore like a Kohen. To give him the honor, the privilege of being a Kohen. But says the Mishnah Berurah, he can't do the priestly blessing though, because that's like his own thing. We're not obligating him or whatever. He just goes up there and does what he does. So says the Mishnah Berurah, definitely that when it comes to that, he can do it, because even if he did this himself, to do a prostitute, let's say he went to a prostitute, right? Whatever whatever, something like that. So if he did so, right, and he did teshuvah, we can accept him too, So all the more so we can accept him when his daughter did it, which is like one step removed from him. So therefore, right, says the Mishnah Berurah, the rule is like this, right? That we don't have to honor him as a Kohen, but if he wants to do the blessing, we don't stop him either. So, you can do it. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know. That's about it. All right, very interesting. Okay, so be blessed with wealth, health, happiness. Have a good night. Chazak u'baruch. Pray for the soldiers. They're doing an amazing job over there, wiping out all the Nazis. Pretty soon there's going to be no Nazis left anymore. At least in Gaza, and we'll see what happens after that. But the truth is, they're all Nazis there, So what can you do? When they're born, they already teach them to be a Nazi. They teach them to kill Jews. That's the first thing they teach them. Not Aleph Bet, right? Like we do. They just tell them, kill the Jews. That's what they tell them. Okay. So anyway, Hashem should help us, to defeat these Nazis, B'ezrat Hashem, and wipe them out, first in the south, and then in the north, and all the way around, right, until we get rid of all of them, B'ezrat Hashem. Because, the Torah teaches us, right, we have to wipe out Amalek. So, definitely somebody who does this kind of behavior is a prime choice for Amalek. Okay, very good. We'll see you tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem. Laila Tov.
Kabbalah, thank you so much.
All right, all the best.